kind of seems like, wow, this is a lot of really technical, crazy stuff. But if you look at, this is really just giving you a lot of, hey, as you're working as a representative, you're going to hear so many of these terms and things. Just even being exposed to it, don't worry about absorbing every single one of these. A lot of this right now, you're just getting exposed to it and going, oh, okay, I've heard that before. I'm going to go back and look at my notes and, oh, yeah, I know what that is now. As you get more and more into it and learn more, this is all going to become easier. But right now, you're just kind of exposing yourself to these different things. But it is understanding our role and how we fit into the whole big picture. So along those lines, we have to understand what our best practices are to be. Tax practitioners, representatives, we're that liaison, as I've mentioned. We're acting as that go-between, the intermediary between the client and the IRS. We're that person that is to help make things happen and resolve things. We're to solve the taxpayer's issue in the best interest of both the IRS and the taxpayer. So we have a big role ourselves when we look at what we have to be able to do. If we look at, we have to provide the highest quality of representation by adhering to basically best practices. We have to provide advice and prepare and assist in preparation of information. So what are these best practices? A lot of them I'm going to refer to Circular 230 because that's kind of our overriding document that governs us. We have to communicate clearly with the client, the terms of our engagement. We can't be nebulous. We have to establish the facts. We have to look at evidence and look at applicable law. And, basically we arrive at a conclusion that's supported by the law and the facts. So we have this job of taking these puzzle pieces and assembling them and figuring out, okay, does this make sense? We have, if we look at other, Circular 230, Section 1033A and B, well, we have to then advise the client regarding those conclusions we reach. And, okay, can you avoid any accuracy-related penalties if you act on the advice? I mean, all these little things we have to say, client, here's the information I have, and here's how all this fits together. We have to act fairly and with integrity before the IRS. And we have to establish procedures to ensure our own best practices. So that's one of the things that we have to do. In fact, a tax advisor, if you're responsible for overseeing your firm's practice of providing advice or preparation of, let's say, tax returns, you have to take reasonable steps to make sure your own firm's procedures are consistent. You have to set your own best practices in order to be covered under this arena. So it is, okay, what are our own best practices? We have to take a look at that. We can't just say, oh yeah, this is how I'll do this case, I'll do the next case differently. What are these best practices though? It says, well, you have to be competent. You can't engage in practice before the IRS in an arena that you're not competent in. So what does competent practice mean? You have to have the appropriate level of knowledge. So already you're taking a course, you're gaining knowledge, you're learning how to do these things. You have to have the appropriate level of skill, and you have to understand the matter which you're engaged to do. So you either have to be already, competent in that area. You have to hire out or consult with somebody who's competent. If you're like, gosh, I am so out of my realm, I'm going to hire that out or consult it out. Or maybe you don't know it yet, but you're going to become competent. You're learning that. I can take this on as long as I know I can already be in that arena. I can hire out, or I can become that competent person in order to help this client. In other words, you got to be comfortable with knowing what you don't know and figuring out how you fix that. That is one of your obligations, actually. Like, maybe your arena isn't foreign taxes and you already know that. Like, okay, I can only help you if I consult with somebody else that can do that for me, or I'm going to learn it myself. These are areas that you just have to be comfortable with knowing what you don't know. It also includes exercising due diligence. So as we're preparing returns or documents or communications or doing anything related to tax matters, we've got to make sure, have we determined, is that written representation or that verbal representation, is it correct? Are we relying on someone else's work product? You can't just take it at face value, but you have to take some reasonable care when maybe engaging or supervising, training, evaluating, basically kind of look at it as relationships matter in this case. How trustworthy is that information you're getting? And can you just take it at face value, or do you need to kind of dig into it a little bit? So if we say due diligence, that's kind of a word that we get thrown a few times. It's a process that we look at decisions to be made. And we say, it's like a risk versus benefit kind of thing. Okay, what's the cost of this? What's the risks of it? Our job is to investigate. We got to look at the facts and circumstances and actors, like the folks involved, to say, okay, am I comfortable with this? Can we make an informed decision about the action? Due diligence is an attitude. We want to improve the quality and the amount of information to the decision maker. Our decision maker is really our taxpayer, honestly. But we got to say, we're going to help you assemble this. We're going to give you the information and help you to maybe make an informed decision. It also means ensuring accuracy, quality in whatever preparation of documents or things that we're doing or representing. We got to know our client. Here's a hard thing. When you go into an audit, you have to know your client so well that you can answer every question. They're going to ask about education. They're going to ask about so many things. You've got to know your client as if you're the client, or you're really not serving your purpose and they can go around you. So know your client, know the facts, know the law, and apply it. So this is all what we call due diligence. And you have the capability. I mean, I've done this over the years, something that I'm not familiar with. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to learn it. I'm going to understand this. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to go get it. It's all about what and who you know is the bottom line. So don't be afraid of it, but just be able to assess yourself and say, okay, I'm not comfortable in this. I need to learn more. And that already you're here. You're taking, continuing education. You're understanding so much more already. So what about your own office procedures? We're kind of just talking about high-level stuff, but you got to look at your own procedures. It doesn't matter if you have, it's just yourself or you have lots of employees under you. You've got to make sure, do you have procedures that you follow with all your clients? And this one I can't stress enough. Do you require engagement letters? Make sure you do, because if you have errors and omissions insurance, sometimes they won't pay out if you don't have an engagement letter. You got to make sure and have clear communication with your client to know, what are you really doing, so they don't think you're doing everything in the world plus some. The engagement letters really help to solidify that. If you don't have an area of competence, can you hire it out? Do you have someone in the old days we used to say Rolodex, but someone on your list you can call, or are you comfortable with going out and learning that and getting knowledge before agreeing to a new engagement in an arena that maybe isn't your comfort zone? Remember, it's all about doing the same thing the same way every single time. It's like if you have, we have very specified in my office procedures, very consistent. So like every time somebody does something a certain way, it's a certain form, and we always do it the same way. So there's an expectation it's always done the same way. And yeah, it's going to evolve over, 25 years of doing this. My procedures have evolved over time, but just think of creating some office procedures if you haven't already. The main thing is, with all this said, with just a little bit of knowledge, you're able to take so much of this to the next level. This is like your building blocks. And yes, we said this is an introduction to tax resolution. Within this, you're like, okay, I kind of understand the structure of the IRS. I know some of these terms now. I know what my duties are. Just don't let that scare you. I mean, you're in an awesome position, because what we're able to do as representatives is phenomenal. We're able to help the IRS come to a case closure and take case burden off of them, help the taxpayer, which I cannot tell you how rewarding it is when your taxpayer goes, I've been, worried about sleeping for so many years and this is weighing on me, and, how much of a relief we can give to a taxpayer and let them move on with their life. So yes, resolution, representation, it's an amazing field to be in. You have the power to take this to the next level. You already are here and learning so much about it. Just absorb what you can. There's so much out there. I find it just thrilling and exciting. I think you definitely will as well. But just imagine what you're going to be able to achieve for your clients as well as yourself. This is definitely lucrative because we have time and money and energy investment into it. But what we do for the IRS and the taxpayer at the same time as that liaison is phenomenal. So, just know that anything is possible in this arena. You have the tools already that you're starting to build just with this one single course. Please go out if you haven't taken the course number 1, where we talk about representation, understanding, authority, and some of the fine points of that. We have an introduction to collections. We have all kinds of great information out there. Just absorb it and don't be afraid. Anything is possible in this arena.
All right. So Tanya, you mentioned some other things, and I know the answer to this one, but we'll ask it anyway. Where can they find more information about this realm? This is just kind of the first taste, and other courses, and kind of talk about that and other resources.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the exciting thing is there's a lot of more free resources in this than ever existed when I first started out. Canopy is an amazing resource of all kinds of free continuing education. Even the IRS has access to their IRS forum. Now, they'll let you take the recorded content for free, but they won't give you continuing education for it. CPA Academy, those are some of my favorites, but there's just a wealth of information out there, guys. Don't be afraid to, I mean, Google is one of our best allies nowadays. When I started out, and it's kind of embarrassing, I started out way before the age of the internet, so we couldn't Google anything. But now you can put search terms in and learn so much. There's a wealth of information. Just embrace it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, and that dovetails actually perfectly with our last slide. When we transition and look at that, you've got information of how to get a hold of Tanya. Check out her website, and we've got some resources there that we reference from other courses, as well as the Canopy community, which is a community of tax professionals for maybe specific cases or scenarios that are outside what we might cover in our courses. And you can see that we have courses, and you're on one now, so you can access those courses. And we have a whole lot of information. Tanya's done hours and hours of sharing her knowledge with that, and we hope that you'll check them out. We look forward to seeing you on future courses.